right, I'm David Rogers. I'm running for place 6 on GISD School Board. So Luke Macias said, culture is what you choose to honor and what you choose to shame. I am out to change the culture on the GISD Board of Trustees. I'm not out to change the culture in GISD. I'm out to change the culture on the Board of Trustees. They've been honoring reckless waste, greedy spending, ineffective. They've destroyed transparency. They don't honor truth. You know, Winston Churchill used to say, the truth is like a lion. If you unleash it, it defends itself. They've had a board of trustees there that for the most part have blocked the truth at every single turn. In 2022, when WFAA contacted the superintendent, assistant superintendent, wanted their phone calls and emails returned, they were blocked. They didn't release anything until after the election. When they pushed through the bond in May 2024, the numbers, the demographic study, the numbers were inflated. They knew about it back in December. They didn't tell anybody until after the May election. So when you destroy and you trample the truth, without truth, you know, that's why they say, well, misinformation, we got a problem with misinformation. Yeah, I don't want the foxes to tell me about what misinformation in the hen house is. I don't want the foxes to be the arbiter of what truth in the hen house is. I need some objectivity, and we have not gotten it from the Board of Trustees. You know, their revenues between 2018 and 2024, they've had over a 53% increase in revenues. Well, like my pastor used to say, if what you want is not what you need, you'll never get enough of it. If money alone was going to solve the leadership problem on the Board of Trustees, it would have been solved a long time ago. What have they done with the insurance? So our trustee, Karen Lowry, asked, why can't you price shop for competitive bids for the insurance? And they said, and then as soon as they did, they found out that they could have had it for $250,000 a year less when a TASB insurance company was charging them over $500,000 a year. Well, they immediately lowered it to $250,000, but and so if a company's ripping you off for years on end, you're not going to go back with that company. You're going to go with a different company. Well, they went back with the TASB company. The deductibles were higher. It doesn't cover mold in buildings. And this is the TASB back then. Do you realize how destructive that is? So many of their decisions have been so reckless, like when they took the buses off the maintenance schedule and put on the interest and sinking schedule. You got buses out here over 100-degree heat with kids on them, the AC's breaking down because they were trying to use it to manipulate people into pushing these bloated bonds. Again, so right now in Texas, there's over 30 ISDs that are closing schools just in the DFW Metroplex. Louisville's closing over 20 schools in the next 5 years. Fort Worth's closing 18 in the next 3 years. So our demographics report just came out. We had 22 less students this year than we did last year. So why would all the rest of the state have a decrease in enrollment, and why would Granbury be exempt from that? So Wisdom is doing now what you're going to be happy with later. The first bond they tried to push was over $750 million. The second one was over, I think, 160. Before interest was like 160 something, but after interest it would have been like 400 million. Then they tried to push another bond. Folks, this would have been a disaster had these bonds passed. And they said, well, we came within 2 votes. We had one that only fell by 2. Yeah, because you obstructed the truth. You blocked the truth. You destroyed transparency. Let me tell you about money. You know, Jesus in the Bible, the top 3 items he spoke most about, number 1 was love, number 2 was hell, and number 3 was money, if you statistically break it down. If money wasn't an issue in people's lives, I don't think Jesus would have talked about it as much. But again, culture is what you choose to honor and what you choose to shame. And the Bible says that the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. When you're willing to put kids on buses that break down over 100-degree heat to try to push through a bond, when you're willing to throw over $250,000 a year away for a taxpayer-funded lobbyist organization to give their insurance policies, they're going to put kids in buildings with mold. When Jesus in Luke 9:42, he said, if anyone harms one of these little ones, it'd be better for a man to have a millstone tied around his neck to the bottom of the ocean than to harm one of these little ones. You ever notice how all the referendums show, they say, well, you know, so our trustee, Karen Lowry and Melanie Graff, tried to put a referendum or a resolution that would denounce the Biden Title IX changes. Biden was changing Title IX, which had been in law since 1972. He was trying to change it to put biological men and girls' private bathrooms and locker rooms and spaces. So my opponent, she voted against the resolution that would have denounced the Biden Title IX change. They said, well, you know, that's political theater. Well, what you choose to honor and what you choose to shame we got to get a change on the Board of Trustees. We have to change the atmosphere and the attitude on the Board of Trustees. They need to start honoring truth instead of trampling truth. That's what we need. And so I'm running for place 6 to make a change. Anyway, I asked for your vote, but anyway.